Okay.
This is, which chapter is this?
8.
Chapter 8.
And what is the title of the chapter?
Lord
Very-
Nrsimhadeva slays the king
Yeah.
of the demons.
Okay, good.
You remember it from this morning?
Yes. As described in this chapter, Hiranyakashipu was ready to kill his own son, Prahlada Maharaj, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared in front of the demon as Sri Nrishikeshari, half lion and half man, and killed him. Following the instructions of Prahlada Maharaj, all the sons of the demons became attached to Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When this attachment became pronounced, their teachers, Sanda and Amarka, were very much afraid that the boys would become more and more devoted to the Lord. In a helpless condition, they approached Hiranyakashipu and described in detail the effect of Prahlada's preaching. After hearing of this, Hiranyakashipu decided to kill his son Prahlada. Hiranyakashipu was so angry that Prahlada Maharaj fell down at his feet and said many things just to pacify him, but he was unsuccessful in satisfying his demonic father. Hiranyakashipu, as a typical demon, began to advertise himself as being greater than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Prahlada Maharaj challenged him, saying that Hiranyakashipu was not God, and began to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declaring that the Lord is all-pervading, that everything is under him, and that no one is equal to or greater than him. Thus he requested his father to be submissive to the omnipotent Supreme Lord. The more Prahlada Maharaj glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the more angry and agitated the demon became. Hiranyakashipu asked his Vaishnava son whether his god existed within the columns of the palace, and Prahlada Maharaj immediately accepted that since the Lord is present everywhere, he was also present within the columns. When Hiranyakashipu heard this philosophy from his young son, he derided the boy's statement as just the talk of a child and forcefully struck the pillar with his fist. As soon as Hiranyakashipu struck the column, there issued forth a tumultuous sound. At first, Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, could not see anything but the pillar, but to substantiate Prahlada's statements, the Lord came out of the pillar. Substantiate Prahlada's statements. The Lord came out of the pillar in his wonderful incarnation as Nrsimhadeva, half lion and half man. Hiranyakashipu could immediately understand the extraordinary, wonderful form of the Lord was surely meant for his death, and thus he prepared to fight with the form of half lion and half man. The Lord performed his pastimes by fighting with the demons for some time, and in the evening, on the border between day and night, the Lord captured the demon, threw him on his lap, and killed him by piercing his abdomen with his nails. The Lord not only killed Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, but also killed many of his followers. When there was no one else to fight, the Lord, roaring with anger, sat down on Hiranyakashipu's throne. The entire universe was thus relieved of the rule of Hiranyakashipu, and everyone was jubilant in transcendental bliss. Then all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, approached the Lord. These included the great saintly persons, the Pitas, the Siddhas, the Vidyaharas, the Nagas, the Manus, the Prajapitas, the Gandharvas, the Karanyas, the Yaksas, the Kimpurushas, the Vatalikas, and the Kinnaras, and also many other varieties of beings in human form. All of them stood not far from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and began offering their prayers unto the Lord, whose spiritual effulgence was brilliant as he sat on the throne.
Hare Krishna. Continue?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is text 1, Canto 7, Chapter 8, Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Narada Uvacha Attadaitya Sutta Sarve Shrutvatad Anuvarnitam Dragrihur Niravadyatvan Naiva Gurvanu Shikshitam. Translation. Narada Muni continued. Just for context, this is Narada Muni speaking to Maharaj Yudhisthira about the pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsimhadeva. Narada Muni continued, all the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions of Prahlad Maharaj and took them very seriously. They rejected the materialistic instructions given by their teachers, Sanda and Amarka. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is the effect of the preaching of a pure devotee like Prahlad Maharaj. If a devotee is qualified, sincere and serious about Krishna consciousness, and if he follows the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, as Prahlad Maharaj did when preaching the instructions he had received from Narada Muni, his preaching is effective. As it is said in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25, Satam prasanga mama virya sambido bhavanti rit karna rasayana kata. If one tries to understand the discourses given by the Sat or pure devotees, those instructions will be very pleasing to the ear and appealing to the heart. Thus, if one is inspired to take to Krishna consciousness, and if one practices the process in his life, he is surely successful in returning home back to Godhead. By the grace of Prahlad Maharaj, all his class friends, the sons of the demons, became Vaishnavas. They did not like hearing from their so-called teachers, Sanda and Amarka, who were interested only in teaching them about diplomacy, politics, economic development, and similar topics meant exclusively for sense gratification. Hare Krishna. Well, one thing I'm seeing here is there's definitely a theme of these pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj himself. Of course, the soul's eternal, but he was like in the form of a 5-year-old boy as he had received and absorbed. Actually, he was in the embryo. It was pre-birth. He was in the embryo when he received the diksha, the transformational transcendental knowledge from Narada Muni. And so Narada Muni is, Prahlad Maharaj is, so he's sharing Krishna consciousness with his 5-year-old, like it's at recess time when the teachers aren't looking. And so he's sharing with his classmates. And at first they had some objection, like, oh, well, spiritual life. Oh, maybe when we get old, we'll do spiritual life. But now, let's play and enjoy. Prahlad Maharaj says, Kamara achret pragyo dharmam bhagavatamiha manusham janmanam manusham dulbam dharma tadat yatuv martadam. He says, no, start now. You can't be too young to start this, otherwise I'm reminded of a quote from the philosopher Dryden. The philosopher Dryden said, first we make our habits, and then our habits make us. And so then if we develop unspiritual, toxic habits as children, teenagers, then we take them into our adulthood, and then those habits drive us, and it becomes harder and harder to choose spiritual life. So this is the theme of this path. It's so much about child protection. It's so much about, it's never too late. It's never too early to give ourselves to the eternal process of Krishna consciousness. And so that was text 1. We're reading this.
Is that your phone? Do you want me to ask you? That's not your phone?
That's not my phone. I don't really do phones.
Sutta Kesham Buddhim Ekanta Tam Stitam Alakshya Buddha Tvarito Rajna Tiredaya Yata. Translation. When Santa and Amarka, the sons of Sukracharya, observed that all the students, the sons of the demons, were becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness because of the association of Prahlad Maharaj, they were afraid. they approached the king of the demons and described the situation as it was. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The words Buddhim Ekanta Samstitam indicate that as an effect of Prahlad Maharaj's preaching, the students who listened to him became fixed in the conclusion that Krishna consciousness is the only object of human life. The fact is that anyone who associates with a pure devotee and follows his instructions becomes fixed in Krishna consciousness and is not disturbed by materialistic consciousness. The teachers particularly observed this in their students, and therefore they were afraid because the whole community of students was gradually becoming Krishna conscious.
I'll just say some comments from their own realizations, their own comments.
The pure devotee of the Lord is infectious, whereas when one hears from the pure devotee, then their heart becomes softened and purified, and they just slowly become Krishna conscious.
Infection.
Actions, that's a long word.
We have to. Yeah, so she can go ahead.
Kopavesha Kaladgatra Patram Hantum Manolode Kshiptva Purushasya Vacha Praradam Atad Ardanam Ahekshama Mana Papena Tiras Chinena Chakshusha Rashraya Vanatam Dantam Madanjali Avastitam Sarpa Pada Hata Iva Svasan Prakriti Dharnaham. When Hiranyakashipu understood the entire situation, he was extremely angry, so much so that his body trembled. Thus he finally decided to kill his son Prahlad. Hiranyakashipu was by nature very cruel, and feeling insulted, he began hissing like a snake, trampled upon by someone's foot. His son Prahlad was peaceful, mild, and gentle. His senses were under control, and he stood before Hiranyakashipu with folded hands. According to Prahlad's age and behavior, he was not to be chastised. Yet, with staring, crooked eyes, Hiranyakashipu rebuked him with the following harsh words. When one is impudent towards a highly authorized devotee, one is punished by the laws of nature. The duration of his life is diminished, and he loses the blessings of superior persons and the result of pious activities. Hiranyakashipu, for example, had achieved such great power in the material world that he could subdue practically all the planetary systems in the universe, including the heavenly planets, Swargaloka. Yet now, because of his mistreatment of such a Vaishnava as Prahlad Maharaj, all the results of his tapasya diminished. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Ayushriya Yasodharma Lokana Shisha Evacha Hanti Shreyamsi Savani Umso Mahad Atikramaha. When one when one mistreats great souls, his lifespan, opulence, reputation, religion, possessions, and good fortune are all destroyed.
Mistreats.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
streets, yeah.
something to take to heart. Yeah, so this is danger. Yeah, so we may have some piety, something we accrued this life or past life, but if we're not careful, if we rebuke somebody who is actually pure and is humble and gentle, like Prahlad, or actually anybody, we are risking losing what's in our bag of piety. And yeah, so that's when he got his kind of destiny cut. That was when he was like determined that there's no more, he cannot really continue, you know, on his, whatever he accrued already, he cannot like continue like this, but he'll have to pay for it. So,
Interesting, isn't it, that he was able to subdue all the demigods and the heavenly planets, but and he was going on with that and
Yeah.
more and more, but when he would give to his pure devotee son, then
yeah,
it's finished.
All over.
Yeah.
so it's yeah, there's a danger even in doing good things, like having some credit, but then we may misuse it like that. So we lose not only what we did, but it's even paving our future to something worse.
Yeah.
We can imagine.
It's weird, it's thinking about not only a very powerful person quickly, but it's a father who's very powerful and a 5-year-old boy who's just very gentle, innocent, and no, it says at that age, children cannot be forgiven. So then, what does that mean about how we treat our own children? Because many of us have been parents, or our parents, or no other parents to our children. So it's very important that our children are treated with love and affection all the time, and not rebuked unnecessarily or harshly, or by, you know, as parents or as teachers or as any kind of elder. If they rebuke a child, it's a very heavy reaction. There's what I hear, and I've not verified this, but coming from a source that I trust, that in the Bible it is stated that the worst kind of sinful activity or offensive activity is that of rebuking children, or to speak of abusing them, or you know.
Yeah, it affects their whole life.
Yeah, I was wondering,
Yeah,
what you wanted to speak, because you're in a whole generation of. Anyway. It's very important to get this right.
and he was hissing like a snake, you know, like he was infuriated, you know, because such a contrast between his personality, his age, and his control and power, and another little boy, you know, it's his boy.
You must have seen a lot of this in your services, the child protection office.
Yeah,
We have a contrast as.
we were swimming in this sort of Hiranyakashipu mentality. Yeah. Yeah, with Hiranyakashipu, he's a real historical figure. Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft cushions. This is a Kashipu. And so that, like, his name indicates his life purpose to enjoy gold and soft cushions. And so with Hiranyakashipu, because he couldn't control his senses, his senses drove him to attempt to control the entire universe, and he was successful. Essentially, the materialistic project is that, like, we don't really just want to like control a little apartment or a few people in a company. We want to control the entire universe, and we fall very short. So he was like a quintessentially effective, successful materialist. He succeeded to control the entire universe, even though in a sense he couldn't control his senses. He was quite powerful to perform austerities, which gave power, and he got boons from Lord Brahma. Of course, the austerities were not for godly purposes, they were for ahankara, false ego purposes. So he controlled even the demigods were bowing down before him because they had their material attachments and fearfulness. So he controlled the entire universe. The great controllers were bowing down to him. Just one thing he couldn't control was this 5-year-old boy who was just happily chanting Hare Krishna. So that was just like, how could you not be scared of me? Hare Krishna. So this is the psychological and historical, some of the psychological historical context there.
So, Prabhu, I'm sorry.
Just a little, other than his desire to control,
Yeah.
he had no sentiment whatsoever for a child of his, right? So regardless of, he had no base of emotional connection to this boy just because he was kind of taking a different path, right?
That's what it seems. Like he had affection, assuming that the prince is
Following his footsteps.
going to continue the legacy of Machiavellian control and manipulation, politics, and assuming. So that's I appreciate your comment because it points to like in material relations, even parental. It's to the extent that it's material, it's all business. We can speak of love, we can speak of affection, but basically, my son will he'll gratify my senses by continuing on and continuing on with the agenda to kill Vishnu, who killed his uncle, and to rule the universe, and then that'll be my legacy. But then the son's like, I just want to serve Vishnu, Shavanam Kirtanam Vishnu. So then, so once you're not reciprocating, then I'll smash you.
There's no affection.
No affection, no genuine affection.
I have a question. So when we talk in this, usually we use the word abuse in this movement. And then there's chastisement, which is done in a proper way to help the child. And then there's rebuke. So is the definition of rebuke the same as severe abusing or any kind of abusing? That's what rebuke means, basically. Because if it's considered that simple, like you said in the Bible, and the word is used here, rebuke. So what does that mean?
Google it.
Does it mean abuse? Would that be the proper definition for rebuke?
But
I think it's in context, it can be used in different ways.
There's the words vacha, mind, vacha, and action. So abuse is to actually, do something. So it can be obviously also emotional abuse, but
Because sometimes you can just verbally rebuke someone.
yeah,
But Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill Prahlad. That's a pretty heavy rebuking.
that's already not in a rebuke.
Yeah, he was trying to stop him from glorifying Krishna. That was the rebuking, is stopping him from glorifying Krishna.
Yeah, that's the greatest violence. Real violence means to not give Krishna consciousness.
Yes, that's how I define violence in
Yeah,
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah,
So my understanding is like the word rebuke is not intrinsically negative or adverse.
Correction.
Like there's it's somewhat synonymous with chastisement. There's healthy, appropriate rebuke, including of children. And here, I think, Narada Muni speaking to Maharaj Yudhishthira, it's emphasizing he's rebuking him for innocently chanting Hare Krishna. And so that's
Okay.
the great offense.
He's trying to destroy his spiritual.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Out of such envy,
Yeah.
and lack of
Yeah. That's the
basic
greatest violence.
parental affection.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, he wanted to be God, basically. He didn't want to ever die. That's what he asked for. So he wanted everyone, you right, when he got his boons, he's like, everyone worship me.
Yes.
And he was.
And they did, except for one person.
Excellent. I was thinking that too, that he just so badly wanted to be seen as God in Prahlad, not just Prahlad's, but everybody's eyes. And everybody was so easy to conform to that based on fear, right? The mongering that he did. And Prahlad was just not ever moved, even a little, because he was so centered and balanced in his love for Lord Vishnu. And it's like parents do that. They child will not adhere to them being that God figure, but how many children in this age especially, or any, are challenging their parents to say, no, actually, you're not God, there's somebody above you, and I worship them instead. We should be worshiping them together, let's chant,
God is very well known, terminology. Prabhupada would say that God is great, but there's such a expansion of that word possible. What does that mean, God is great? So in this case, some of the verses we read is that Hiranyakashipu wanted to be the supreme authority. That word authority. You're my son, I'm your authority. And you respect my authority. And if you don't, and if you say that there's somebody else that is a higher authority than me, then you're in trouble. And I'm gonna put a stop to that. So so that this threat of not being the authority in somebody's life, and that they're saying, no, I accept another authority. And if that causes the reaction to be that of anger and hissing, like you said, I've seen it in the lives of persons who, for example, want to accept Srila Prabhupada as the authority. And somebody else says, no, I'm the authority. Prabhupada is not the authority. And if they object to that, then the hissing starts. And I've seen the hissing actually. They just can't stand it that somebody else is being, presided by you as an authority bigger than me, and I'm not going to go for it.
Yeah.
I'm in big trouble.
There's another thought that came to my mind because, from children up to a certain age, you don't expect retaliation.
Yeah.
When you're a teenager, it's okay. When you're so small,
Yeah,
where do you get your authority to do that? Because you're still very small.
yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead.
Mhm.
Shri Hiranyakashipu Uvacha Hey Durvanita Mandatman Kula Veda Karatama Satam Chashano Vritam Nishe Twadya Yamashayam. Translation: Hiranyakashipu said, O most impudent, most unintelligent, disrupter of the family, O lowest of mankind, you have violated my power to rule you, and therefore you are an obstinate fool. Today I shall send you to the place of Yamaraj. Purport: Hiranyakashipu condemned his Vaishnava son Prahlad for being Durvanita, ungentle, uncivilized, or impudent. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, has derived a meaning from this word Durvinita by the mercy of the goddess of learning, Saraswati. He says that Dur refers to this material world. This is confirmed by Lord Krishna in his instruction in Bhagavad Gita that this material world is Diklayam, full of material conditions. V means Vishesha, specifically, and Nita means brought in. By the mercy of the Supreme Lord, Prahlad Maharaj was especially brought to this material world to teach people how to get out of the material condition. Lord Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat. When the entire population or part of it becomes forgetful of its own duty, Krishna comes. When Krishna is not present, the devotee is present. But the mission is the same, to free the poor conditioned souls from the clutches of the Maya that chastises them. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further explains that the word mandatman means manda, very bad or very slow in spiritual realization. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 10, Manda Sanu Samanda Matayo Manda Bhagya. Prahlad Maharaj is the guide of all the non-mandas, or bad living entities who are under the influence of Maya. He is the benefactor even of the slow and bad living entities in this material world. Kulabeda Karadama. By his actions, Prahlad Maharaj made great personalities who established big families seem insignificant. Everyone is interested in his own family and in making his dynasty famous. But Prahlad Maharaj was so liberal that he made no distinction between one living entity and another. Therefore, he was greater than the great Prajapatis who established their dynasties. The word stabdam means obstinate. A devotee does not care for the instructions of the Asuras. When they give instructions, he remains silent. A devotee cares about the instructions of Krishna, not those of demons or non-devotees. He does not give any respect to a demon, even though the demon be his father. Makchakshano Ritam. Prahlad Maharaj was disobedient to the orders of his demoniac father. Jama Shayam. Every conditioned soul is under the control of Jamaraj. But Hiranyakashipu said that he considered Prahlad Maharaj his deliverer. For Prahlad would stop Hiranyakashipu's. Wait, I didn't quite get that. What was it?
Keep going, you'll get it.
Said that he considered Prahlad Maharaj his deliverer, for Prahlad would stop Hiranyakashipu's repetition of birth and death.
This is like an alternate explanation of
Yeah.
the Sanskrit by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti
Yeah.
Thakur.
Mhm.
It's like different layers of meaning that Vishwanath's bringing in.
Because Prahlad Maharaj, being a great devotee, was better than any yogi, Hiranyakashipu was to be brought among the society of bhakti yogis. Thus, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained these words in a very interesting way, as they can be interpreted from the side of Saraswati, the mother of learning. I was just gonna say that earlier in the first paragraph, reminded me that Srila Prabhupada at one time said, if they knew what I was doing, they would kill me. So it was very obvious what Prahlad Maharaj was doing. Srila Prabhupada was more like, what's that saying, in like a
In
needle,
in
not like a lion.
Wow.
And obviously some knew what he was doing because they wanted to do it, but they can't do it, and they blew it. And so they became very envious like snakes hissing. The rest of it, I can't even comment on because I'm barely grabbing it myself.
Anybody else would like to speak on? So we have appropriate or we'll go to the next person.
It's mostly a question. I wasn't sure if you could explain a little bit more about the interpretation that's at the end of it, of the deliverance.
Okay, well, certainly not able of any profound insight, but what I'm getting is, first of all, we have Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and so he's this pure devotee Vaishnava scholar from a few hundred years ago. So he's so Srila Prabhupada's quoting Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, giving like some not deeper, but some complementary meaning, like different layers, different perspectives. And so what I'm getting there, one thing, because this goes back, as we mentioned to Bhakti Rose earlier this morning in our program, that then we go back to the third canto, actually when Lakshmi Devi herself felt offended by Jai and Vijay, and that led to Jai and Vijay stopping the four Kumaras, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, which means we see in others what's true about ourselves. Atma, Van means to possess, means we possess in ourselves, Manyate, in our mind. Jagat means the universe out there. So what we see out there might have validity, but apart from that, if we're pointing a finger, we're probably having three fingers pointing back at ourselves. And so the Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha, they perceived wrongly that the four Kumaras were envious. So they said, "Oh, you can't come into Vaikuntha." But actually, the Jai and Vijay had some impurities in their heart, and how that unfolded, it's quite a involved intrigue. But okay, so Hiranyakashipu is like this gatekeeper from the spiritual realm. And so that at some level, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as given to us by Srila Prabhupada, is seeing that Hiranyakashipu is realizing that his son Prahlad is actually a great boon and a great blessing. And his son Prahlad is actually Vishnu's instrument, Krishna's instrument to deliver him from all of this toxic, poisonous envy in his heart. And so at some level, Hiranyakashipu, as the gatekeeper from Vaikuntha, is realizing that his barbaric treatment of his son, and it's all unfolding in a way that's actually for his greatest good, meaning for his liberation from this hellish existence and in this envy of God and all living entities. So that's something I'm getting from it.
I got a little comment on one thing you said was the Jaya and Vijaya impurities in their heart. The reason I'm questioning is because the only thing I remember reading about this was that kind of like Queen Kakai in the Rama Leela was for the purpose of pastime, Krishna had covered, and so she had to act in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that my impression was, when I had read this in the past, but I don't have it in front of me right now, is that Krishna, I think I remember that Krishna had arranged that the Jai and Vijay see the situation as such, so that he could engage in pastimes with his pure devotees, Jai and Vijay, so they would come down. And they chose three. He wanted to fight with demons, so he chose for that to Krishna made that happen. So that's what I remember.
That is consistent with my understanding of Prabhupada's teachings.
Okay.
It's pastime, so
Yeah.
sometimes we can mention, well, this is transcendental pastime. And sometimes we talk, like a few minutes ago, we're talking about how Hiranyakashipu was just so vicious and had no affection. So sometimes we focus there,
Mhm.
and sometimes we
Okay.
focus on the transcendental pastime. Yeah, it's not for me to criticize Jai and Vijay. Still within the pastime, they had envy of the Kumaras within the
Yeah.
context of transcendental.
For whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
Krishna's plan.
Yeah, Krishna.
Yeah.
I've never heard of, I don't remember the past time, but Lakshmi Devi?
Yep.
What's that? I don't remember that.
It's like in one verse in the third canto before we get into Jai and Vijay and Nrsimhadeva, that like they, Lakshmi Devi was like, I don't know, they kind of stopped her to question her. She
Really?
was like, really? And so she said, okay, there's going to be some price to pay here.
Really?
It's in the third canto. Yeah, we don't hear about that part much, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
there.
interesting.
And then that led to the four Kumaras and
That's right.
like
That's
that.
right. So that they did have that seed of
Yeah,
envy of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lakshmi Devi cursed them.
that's right.
Interesting.
She didn't use that word really, she spoke.
No, that's me paraphrasing. Colloquial English. I feel confident that I'm representing her okay.
Thank you for expanding on the deliverance interpretation. Where my curiosity comes from, I won't be able to quote the words exactly, but in the Bhagavad Gita, it talks about the battle of Kurukshetra and how I don't know if it was a certain subgroup or anyone who would be slain during the battle would like
Get liberated.
get liberated. And so then when it says that this was his deliverance, I wonder
Mm-hmm.
because he was slain by Nrsimhadeva that he's
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
And originally the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
He's one of the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. So he's engaging in this pastime and other pastimes so that Krishna, with Krishna in his different forms.
So that Prahlad can deliver his teachings to us.
So we could hear.
Yeah, because we were discussing with Fatima this morning, and here's the altar for the sweet spiritual this, and then on our altars we have this creature ripping someone's intestines out. I mean, what's going on? And then it's terrible, it's horrific like that. And at the same time, everything in the material sphere has its pure counter whole in spiritual pastime. So that actually Lord Nrsimhadeva in co-creation with Prahlad Maharaj is actually doing this wonderful benediction for Hiranyakashipu, including in the ghastly thing with the intestines, and everyone on the battlefield of Kurukshetra who into out of material envy within the they all got liberated from material miseries for being on the same battlefield with Krishna. So that gets to the deeper, more complete meaning. It's like it really is mercy and compassion.
I'd like to tell a cute little story, a cool little story, whatever. Real quick, because you made me think of it.
I prompted.
You prompted it a long time ago when Balavanta's family, our family, and a few other families, 7 families, we went to Knoxville, opened a preaching center and had a little school and everything. So as soon as I moved there in Knoxville, there were some children nearby and it was time for my daughter's birthday. So I said, go invite the children and like that, So they came. It's a new one in the neighborhood, so the parents let them come. And we had a picture of Hiranyakashipu on the wall in the kitchen.
You mean Nrsimhadeva?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, Hiranyakashipu was on his lap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Lord Nrsimhadeva ripping apart. And I didn't even think about it. Back then, I'm kind of like, Krishna. I didn't think about how to preach or what to do, So it was just, so we had halava and sweet rice and didn't even have traditional birthday cake, but we had a lot of fun. But the kids seemed to have fun, but the next day there's a knock on my door. And it's a human resource person.
Wow.
The mother had It's anonymous, of course, I didn't know which one, but I have a good idea, but anyways. He knocked on the door and he said, oh, we have a complaint here, I'm with the Department of Human Resources, and I'm like, okay. He said, you had a birthday party here yesterday, and I said, yeah. And he says, well, one of the parents were really concerned about demoniac worship here. And I said, oh, I don't think so, and he said, can I come in? And, yeah, so he's looking around, he goes, that's what I'm talking about, right there, and he described it to me. And I said, oh, so I told him, I said, do you want to know what that's about? He goes, yes. So I told him the story, the innocent Prahlad Maharaj and the demon father and all that. By the time we finished the story, it took about 10 minutes. I went into it a little bit. He says, oh, well, I don't see anything there that's showing demon worship. I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. And he says, okay, thank you. I'll report back. Everything's fine. Don't worry.
Oh my God, you're trained Dave.
So yeah, benefit too.
Yes, he got benefit. I don't know what the mother thought after that.
We didn't see her kids very much.
I didn't see her daughter at all after that.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for that story.
Number one. Six. Dasha Yasha Kambante Tayo Luka Sahisva Dasha Ni Vipan Mumbai Sasnam Kim Balukyata. Translation: my son beloved, you rascal, you know that when I am angry, all the planets of the three worlds tremble, along with their chief rulers, by whose power has a rascal like you become so impudent that you appear fearless and overstep my power to rule you. The relationship between a pure devotee and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is extremely relishable. A devotee never claims to be very powerful himself. Instead, he fully surrenders to the lotus feet of Krishna, being confident that in all dangerous conditions, Krishna will protect his devotee. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Kandya Prati Janati Name Bhakta Pranashyati, O son of Kunti, declare boldly that my devotee never perishes. The Lord requested Arjuna to declare this instead of declaring it himself, because sometimes Krishna changes his view, and therefore people might not believe him. Thus Krishna asked Arjuna to declare that the devotee of the Lord is never vanquished. Hiranyakashipu was perplexed about how his 5-year-old boy could be so fearless that he did not care for the order of his very great and powerful father. Devotee can execute the order of anyone except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotee cannot execute the order of anyone except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That was not resonating properly. Okay, this is the position of a devotee. Hiranyakashipu could understand that this boy must have been very powerful, since the boy did not heed his orders. Hiranyakashipu asked his son, Umbala, how have you overcome my order? By whose strength have you done this? The devotee cannot execute the order of anyone except the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jai Prabhupada. Right, that's interesting. It's right back to speaking on in this material world. It's exactly the same as with Hiranyakashipu's mentality of hoarding over this material and trying to be the Lord of all. And the child, whoever this is, that's growing with the reflection of this being as God, like authority to them, is subjected to whatever mentality. But the pure devotee, the devotee of the Supreme Lord, will always overcome that horrific, shadowing, demonic type behavior of thinking that I am God. You know? I mean, Prahlad was right beyond any of us, but how amazing an example that at 5 years old, he can stand up to somebody who's said to be the most powerful being, right, on this planet, because he was so pure and just absolutely submissive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know, what kind of power comes from that? You're going to throw somebody who's literally seen as God and worshipped all over and lording over this entire universe, trying to be fearful. Everyone is fearful, even the demigods. And yet he, because he has this love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not moved at all by this hissing, most demonic, gigantic, awful character. Just love him so much. Hare Krishna. Krishna. Please. What do you think?
Comments?
The quality of fearlessness there, you know, there's a text in the Bhagavatam by Dvitiya Viniveshatasya, to the extent where the material bodily conception of life, we're going to have fear, anxiety, insecurity. So Prahlad had there was a lot to be scared of there. Already his father had tried to kill him in so many gruesome ways. But just, not that we want to imitate Prahlad, but through deep Krishna consciousness, we're really relieved of all insecurity, fear, and just like to be fearless in that, like not to drop the fear, just complete trust in Krishna. Krishna's got me on all levels. So that's one thing that comes through. Another thing comes through the purport is Krishna acknowledges that he's tricky, and he has a reputation for being tricky. And so but his kind of like Krishna knows his devotees will tend to have more of a reputation of being like honest, completely dependable, and straightforward. Of course, it's all pastime, but in Bhagavad Gita, like amongst tricksters, I'm the greatest trickster. Amongst cheaters, I'm the greatest cheat. Amongst gamblers. So that quote, and it's because one says Krishna is more committed to protect the honor and integrity of his devotee, like Arjuna, than himself. So just that whole verse, it declared boldly, he's telling Arjuna to declare it boldly, my devotee never perishes. Because essentially what's being said there is, those who are here will trust Krishna's devotee more than Krishna's word. It's very interesting there. Hare Krishna.
She can go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make an offering or start putting that together is what needs to be offered, what doesn't need to be offered. I know chemo doesn't need to be offered. Anything else doesn't need to be offered? Yours doesn't need to be offered. You already are.
Yes, needs to be out.
Needs to go. And yours needs to go.
the first came to mind.
Yes.
One is about fearlessness.
Fearlessness, yeah.
That I think I thought fearlessness is when you don't care for anything that is false, that is not true,
Yeah.
and you become fearless.
Yeah.
It's like, so, yeah, what is true is true.
Yeah.
What is false, let it go. So, I mean, theoretically.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that.
And the other thought was in relation to Hiranyakashipu, because earlier I was mentioning maybe he had some piety or something, but really he performed a lot of austerity, right? So I think
Yeah.
the austerity was the source of his
Yeah.
kind of power, not necessarily piety. good, good deeds.
Yeah.
That's another kind of idea.
Thanks for that. It's an apparent contradiction, but because he couldn't control the senses, so he needs to control. But he controlled his senses in some extraordinary way, the austerities we couldn't conceive. And then there's potency there. There's potency there. When we do austerity, if we do some fasting, we feel the potency. We do some chanting, we rise early. If we did incredible austerities, his austerities were not for godly purposes, but he got material power.
It's passion, right?
Yeah, more back.
You get that off the austerity.
Yeah.
Different purposes and you got demonic purposes also that. But by demons, they have the purposes and they engage in austerity.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's next?
Did you?
6, she did
I did
6.
Text 7. Sri Pallada Varshan Na Kevalam Meba Navatascha Vajam Savaipalam Balinam Shaparesham Pare Pare Me Stira Jankamaye Brahma Dayo Yenu Vasam Pranita. Translation, Srila Prabhupada's translation. Prahlad Maharaj said, "My good king, the source of my strength, of which you are asking, is also the source of yours. Indeed, the original source of all kinds of strength is one. He is not only your strength or mine, but the only strength for everyone. Without him, no one could get any strength, whether moving or not moving, superior or inferior. Everyone, including Lord Brahma, is controlled by the strength of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." Purport. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 10:41, Yad Yad Vibhutimat Sadvam Srimad Urshitam Eva Tata Eva Vagathatvam Mama Tejo Musha Sambhavan. Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. This is confirmed by Prahlad Maharaj. If one sees extraordinary strength or power anywhere, it is derived from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To give an example, there are different grades of fire, but all of them derive heat and light from the sun. Similarly, all living entities, big or small, are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One's only duty is to surrender. For one is a servant and cannot independently attain the position of master. One can attain the position of master only by the mercy of the master, not independently. Unless one understands this philosophy, he is still a mudha. In other words, he is not very intelligent. The mudhas, the asses, who do not have this intelligence, cannot surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Understanding the subordinate position of a living entity takes millions of births, but when one is actually wise, he surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Bahunam Janmanamante Yanaham Mam Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually acknowledged surrenders unto me. Knowing me, to be the cause of all causes, and all that is such, and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Prahlad Maharaj was a great soul and a Mahatma, and therefore he completely surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Lord. He was confident that Krishna would give him protection under all circumstances.
Any
Say something.
comments?
I'm thinking how nice the devotees are.
What
More?
text were we on?
More
He
comments?
doesn't want to say anything else. Or do you?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Srila Prabhupada is so kind. He's so kind. He's, because you have a pure devotee, from a pure devotee, otherwise how can you know about Krishna unless from someone who is his pure devotee, who knows about Krishna? And he very kindly is teaching Krishna consciousness, pure devotional service. And we're just very fortunate that we can hear these most beautiful stories about Prahlad Maharaj, Krishna, Lord Nrsimhadeva, who is eternal and in the association of devotees, very nice devotees.
We haven't had it.
I know, I'm listening.
It'd be nice.
You're engaging in Shravanam hearing.
Yes.
I think, that you're absolutely right. Because it's by Srila Prabhupada's mercy that every last thing has been gifted to us. And following Prabhupada and all of Prabhupada's good graces that he's bestowed upon all of us certainly has an abundance of fearlessness coming out when it's most important at that time of surrender. When we recognize not the doer, and we have absolutely zero control over anything that's about to happen. And there's no other way to live except by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet, because only he can deliver us to Sri Krishna.
Nice.
And so that fearlessness really comes in only by Srila Prabhupada's divine graces, that we even can know him the way that we do. There's no fearlessness without him.
Well, we learn. So it's full surrender and full dependence. We depend on Krishna and please ready to them both can go together, because when we surrender, try and surrender fully, then we become fully dependent, like love. We depend on Nrsimhadeva. So that's a very powerful combination of getting of fearlessness.
In the conversation, we're, of course, reminded of Srila Prabhupada's name, Abhay Charanaravinda.
Yeah.
Srila means fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
No, sure, we do kirtan.
Go to kirtan.
Kirtan, you like to sing? You want harmonium or just like that is okay? This will,
Yeah.
you might rather do the offering and you take some shot.
Very enlivening reading, Sangha, and association. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, yes.